Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Vincent Devall with Eagle Homes, powered by EXP. I got Brad Brewer right here, and Adam Zeman on the other line right there. We're bringing you our Wednesday morning podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about dangers of for sale by owners and the kind of the pros and cons of using a bank or credit union versus a mortgage broker / banker. So actually, we're going to start with Adam today. Adam, let's talk about this a little bit. What's that look like? What are some of the pros and cons?
All right, so I think a lot of times people don't even know where to start, for a mortgage. So let's say, for instance, they haven't talked to yourself or Brad. Where would you, if you've never done a mortgage, where would you probably just walk into your bank, right? That'd be like mostly like the logical thing to do. Okay, not a bad start, honestly. Walk into your bank, see what they have to say, and maybe see if you can get pre-approved, and then maybe connect with an agent. So what I did is I kind of drew, pluses and minuses for both of them, and then things that were sort of the same no matter where you went. So we'll start with kind of the things that are the same no matter who you use, a bank or a broker. So we both follow what's called agency guidelines, and basically what that means is like the Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie Mae of the world that tell us the rules that we need to follow. Okay, so like how we need to determine income, basically the rule book on mortgages. The difference is brokers and bankers can put rules on top of the rules. Okay, so that just depends on where you go, but we all start with the same rules. So no matter where you go, that's going to be the same. Another similarity is third-party fees. So third-party fees are like title fees, appraisal fees. They're all going to have the same fees associated with getting a mortgage. I would say the only real big difference is if you use like an out-of-state lender, typically their fees are a little inflated for like title insurance and appraisals. So just because you're using like a national company. So those are kind of some similarities no matter what you use. So let's kind of start with a bank. So one of the things I kind of think of right off the top of my head, knowing that I know quite a few people that either work at a bank or have worked at a bank. You're kind of one of many, most times. This is a little different with it being a little slower, but you might be one of 40 or 50. So just expect, it might take a little longer for people to get back to you. They got a lot more on their plate, and when that happens, they might not be able to get to you as quickly as possible. A banker works banker hours, 9 to 5. So you're typically going to have to get a hold of them during that time. I don't know of many bankers that are going to work outside those hours, but maybe they do, maybe some do. So I don't know that for sure, but I would say, as a rule, they're typically working those hours, and sometimes it can be hard to get a hold of them during those hours, depending on their workload. Those are my experiences calling banks. That kind of goes back to, like getting in touch with them. I personally called just to get like rate quotes, just to make sure that I was in par. And it can be very difficult to get a hold of somebody. And again, it's slower now, but in busy times, it's a little different. But I will say, if you have a perfect credit score, okay, and you have 20% down and your debt ratio is, 20%, the rates are typically better than someone like me. So if you're like a perfect borrower, you might get a better interest rate than someone on, a banker broker like myself. They're really catering and looking for that perfect borrower. Like that's their bread and butter for most banks and credit unions. I will say we do have a program. It's called a Prime program that kind of caters also to that group of people. But as a rule, if you're like a perfect borrower, you're going to get probably a little bit better, an 1/8 or 1/4 interest rate with that credit union. Another positive for a bank is they typically service their loans. They always have the right to sell their loans, but they're typically carry that servicing. So you may be able to, if you're the kind of person that wants to walk into a bank and make your payment, that could be a plus for you. So those are kind of like a little pluses and minuses for banks. For me, you're going to be one of fewer. We typically, I might have 10 to 15 loans and busy times on my plate, where a banker at the same busy time is probably going to have 40 or 50. So there's going to be a different level of service just by how much time we have in the day, not by sheer what we want to do. It's just there's only so many hours in the day. That's just how it is. I work after hours if I need to. Brad called me on a Friday. I was able to get a hold of him. I was able to call someone on a Saturday morning. I would say that that's probably not likely with most bankers. Again, I'm using generalizations here, not, always. I would say communication in general for someone like me is a lot better. I strive for that communication, those updates, the making sure everybody knows what's going on. I feel like that's what is gonna, that's one of the most important things in the transaction. I would hate to be buying a house and just like forgotten. So I always keep that in the back of my head, like that. I hear that time and time and time again. I couldn't get a hold of my my mortgage person. They never told me what was going on. Or even for a realtor, they listed my house and they didn't call me for 6 weeks. The communication is by far the most common complaint people have from using people in our industry. So I'll try to keep that in mind. What else we have? I think one of the parallels or the biggest differences is where we get our business. So my business comes from realtors, current clients I'm working with, past clients, and other referral partners like people in investments or businesses. So why is that different? I don't have someone just walking in my door where I do have to do a good job every time. Otherwise, I'm just not going to get any business. You don't really necessarily have that when you are at a bank. They just get people walking in the door. So banks, to kind of sum it up, we all kind of have some of the same rules. Banks and different people can put what's called overlays on those rules. So that just depends on the brokerage or the bank. We don't really have much for overlays. That's why we can go down to lower credit scores. Banks are good for, I really think they thrive at that A+ bar that has money down, a low debt ratio. I think you might, a lot of times get a better deal with a credit union for that type of person. If you were, let's just say you're buying $1 million home and you were rich, and you had a lot of assets in that particular bank, by all means, you should definitely walk into that bank and say, I want to get a mortgage, and they're probably going to hold it in their portfolio and give you like the best interest rate. So that's a situation where you should definitely talk to that bank because they want to keep your business. I guess lastly, I don't care about your credit cards. I'm not selling you other services. Okay. You don't need to do an application fee. You don't need to have an account with, me or a broker like me. I'm not going to try to cross sell you other services. It's just focused, on the mortgage versus the whole shebang like you would walking into a bank. So I hope that I did a good job of like trying to do pluses and minuses for both, because I do think there's situations where one is better than the other, or they might be equal at a lot of times. But to sum it up, I think you just got to go with who you like and trust and who's going to communicate really good with you. That's really truly my opinion.
Right. And yeah, to your point, Adam, communication is huge from, every line of business and in this field. A couple questions. You talked about turnaround time early on. I know we've talked about another podcast. What's your typical turnaround time from, someone puts in an application, how quickly are you getting back to them?
So let's just say they do an application. That's something I'm gonna complete, possibly that same day and or the next day. And then we could have the, discovery call, the follow-up call that same day, depending on where they are or what they, what their schedule's like. So I would say less than 24 hours for a pre-approval. That's not, that's if like you're W-2'd and you guys been at the same job for a while, but the more layers to things, maybe if I have to do some research, or you have things like a bankruptcy or a foreclosure, or you're self-employed, that adds layers to what we need to do to get you pre-approved. So if most people are just W-2'd employees, hourly or salary, great. Yeah, you're less than 24 hours, I would say.
Awesome. And you also mentioned banks typically don't sell their loans, they service their loans. And you as a broker banker, typically sell your loans off, correct?
Yeah, there's a percentage we keep and a percentage we sell.
So, one of the concerns my wife had years ago before we went to a mortgage broker to get a better interest rate, does her loan change? Or when you sell that loan only made a change. What changes when we sell that loan?
Nothing, just where you make your payment. Nothing changes. So they're taking those same documents you sign at closing, the mortgage, the note, the deed is registered with the registered deeds. All that is essentially transferred into who's ever going to service it. So your interest rate stays the same, your terms all stay the same. The only thing that it can essentially change on your payment is if you change insurance companies or maybe make a claim, your insurance could change. So, and then taxes. I mean, I've been at this house for 2 years. My taxes have changed every year, like up or down. Like that's just how it goes. We're probably on the upswing because of values going up a little bit. So that could change your payment a little bit. That's why we have the escrow built in, 3 months worth of escrow, so they make if the changes there. But I would say if you hold a mortgage for 5 years, your payment's going to change a little bit just because of those taxes.
But the terms, so like
the terms are all the same. Yeah,
terms are all the same. And I think people don't quite understand that a lot of times when using a mortgage broker or banker, that they feel, oh, their loan's going to get sold off, then I'm going to have to reapply or get new terms. That all stays the same. Really, it's your escrow, or what your interest or taxes are, your taxes and insurance, and then where you send your check. At the end of the month. And
everybody has like an online portal for payment. So what typically happens is more companies might lean more towards servicing. They might be writing their own mortgages, but they also service, and they want a pool of money, that they want to hold. So they just have a big servicing department that takes care of it. It takes some money to get that going because, you got to have people to call if you're delinquent, and you got to have a lot of places and procedures, to service a loan. And I find over doing this 10 years that there's certain companies that they might even be mortgage brokers, but then they service a lot of loans too.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Adam. That's great comparison of the two. Definitely appreciate that. Brad, let's talk a little bit about for sale by owners and some of the dangers of for sale by owners in your experience in this field.
Yeah, thanks. There's definitely dangers. There are also risks that aren't maybe what I would consider dangerous. And then there's just the overall, there's a reason agents, there's a reason loan officers, they all have jobs because there's work involved, and that means time, right? And everybody's time is valuable. So I'm going to go through basically 5 reasons why typically people tend to sell their home on their own, but don't think about on the backside all the different work that's involved. And some of those are definitely some dangers. So first, I'm going to start with the most common one, probably. And I don't know if these are in the exact top order of the why people do it, but I'm going to start with a very common, that's financial reasons. Typically it's, I know 7-8 years ago, we were coming out of a recession, market values were down. The financial reason was there weren't the margins to pay the commission. So a lot of times people chose to sell their home on their own just because they couldn't afford the extra money being spent in commissions. Now it seems to be shifting to the hot market. Maybe they don't need the services that an agent provides. But regardless of the market, national statistics have held up pretty solid that selling your home through an agent will yield you 10 to 30% more on the profit side. And any way you slice that, that's going to cover the 5, 6, 7% commission, whatever you're paying, to get your home sold. Number two, from the financial side of it, not number two overall, but number two on the financial side is you have a 90% chance to put your home for sale yourself, but you're still going to pay a buyer representation, meaning, and a buyer's still going to want to have that representation to support them through the process of buying a home, especially first-time home buyers, because we've done a lot of those types of seminars and all the questions that they have. Well, so you're already going to be paying probably 2.5 to 3% anyway. So some of my other reasons will be to back up why just pay the other 3% to let that agent and let that agent's team, in many cases, handle that process for you. And lastly is we hear, well, I'll just get an attorney to do it and work with the title company. First of all, the title company is not there to give advice. They're there to handle your title work. And yes, they'll answer some questions. They're not there for that. And then the other one is the attorney. A lot of times they think, well, the attorney would be cheaper, but often the questions start adding up. It's billable hours, and next thing you know, the attorney's costing you more than the agent's commission would anyway. I'll do one quick story. I had a person where I had a buyer. We approached the sub-owner. They agreed to pay, X amount of commission. I offered for an additional just 1% to manage the whole transaction. This is several years ago. She said, no, I have an attorney. I'm fine. I said, okay, no problem. All of a sudden, about a week into it, she starts calling, asking me questions. I answered one. The next time she called, I finally said, hey, not to point something out, but I really can't answer too many of these questions for you because I'm not representing you. What happened to your attorney? And her answer was, well, to be honest with you, his bills are starting to add up. So, what we think is going to be the lesser expensive way isn't always that. All right, now to action number 2, marketing. One thing that's newer in Wisconsin, a lot of people may still not know, Zillow no longer allows for sell by owners to the website because Zillow is now technically a licensed brokerage. And due to Wisconsin law, you cannot put your home up for sale on Zillow. And Zillow was probably, I don't know if it's the largest, but it's one of the larger places that a for sale by owner could market your home. So you just lost a large visibility. But I will tell you overall, Zillow is a percentage of small places where people can find your home online. As an agent, we have all kinds of syndicated websites, of course, MLS, print marketing, other types of Facebook and digital marketing. So even with Zillow was allowed, you're still capturing a small percentage. And to this Facebook point, what I'm seeing now is those that figure out that Zillow's gone away, they're putting on Facebook Marketplace. You're capturing such a small percentage of your buyer market that's why typically listing with agent probably yields the 10 to 30% more because you're probably not capturing your best buyer. You can, absolutely, but there's definitely a high chance that you're not. So those are probably 2 of the more common things. The marketing kind of ties into the financial piece. The next thing is the safety and security. One, as agents, we have showing services and how to handle those. We make sure that all buyers do come through with agents. Those agents do vet those buyers. One, making sure they're qualified and can afford and are financially prepared to buy your home. And then 2, what if someone comes to your home by yourself? How are you qualified? There are stories all over of people getting robbed in their homes, fraud being done. We are licensed and educated and have to do continuing education, and every realtor in Wisconsin knows that's up again this year, to make sure that we know how to handle and vet the buyers and keep you safe and secure. Not only your money, but your person as well. Number 4, some time. I mean, how are you handling showings if you're selling it yourself? You know, I've talked to several. I'm like, well, when can I bring someone through? Well, I work until 5, so we'll be out there at 5. You know, there's a lot of people that see homes during the day, during the afternoon. So again, and when people are out seeing homes, when I know Vince and I know I do, and all the other agents, typically when you go take your buyer out for showings, it's usually not one home. It's 2, 3, 4. Well, if we can't go see your home, again, you're missing a potential buyer because they just saw 3 other homes to choose from. They may not come back to yours. So again, you're missing an audience. So again, it's our job. We have time. Again, I referenced earlier, we have the ability to manage that process. And then lastly, once there is a contract, getting through inspection, reviewing inspections, making sure the appropriate requests for repairs are asked for, making sure all deadlines, appraisals, the lender process is all taken care of and done in a timely manner. Well, we have teams for that. Like we have transaction coordinators for that help us, because obviously we have multiple clients, just like Adam has several clients. So we have teams that literally help us get this through the finish line, whereas you just have potentially you. So again, time is valuable. I value my time. I always try my best to make sure I put my client's time at the highest priority level as well. And number 5, typically, they just think it's easy. They don't think about all those previous 4 things that I mentioned. And what do all those things turn out to be? Work. So I probably could have combined the last one is time as well. I mean, they think it's easy. They don't think of all the legal stuff behind it. They don't think of all the marketing efforts, the showing efforts. It's not easy. And that's why, real estate was created. So, and the savings just don't typically need to be there. I don't like throwing out a bunch of these stats, but I saw a stat, and I haven't seen it for a couple of years. I'm assuming the trend hasn't, if anything, it's probably increased, because I know the last couple of years, for sale by owners increased because, of course, low inventory and everything sells so quick. So it was easy. You bring out my air quotes, but it's really not. And for what? To save a little bit of money that's probably not actually there. So those are real reasons. I'm never pushing. If you want to go ahead and sell yourself, home yourself, great, do it. I'll try and bring you a buyer. But when you really add all these things up, to save a 2%, and I realize on a $300,000 home, 2% is $6,000. But again, look at all that stuff that adds up to time, effort, money, things like that. And what I was mentioning legally is the stat a few years ago was 33% of for sale by owners, true for sale by owners, no agent involved on either side, ended up in litigation, which who knows what that costs you. You go to court, that could be tens of thousands of dollars. So I'd say, just be educated. We talk all the time. We really encourage, and we always say this, our consultations, just so you know, are always free. And if you're talking 3 years out, we'll still meet with you. We want to be part of your preparation process. So consultation, I'll call it planning as well. It's always free. So if you're thinking about selling yourself, just talk to us first. And I'm not gonna lie, I have several years ago, I actually told someone based on their situation, like, actually, I think you need to do this yourself. It was a financial thing. But at the end of the day, I did help that person buy a home. Because of course, when you buy a home, you don't pay commission. So I still helped her out, and she's very happy. So those are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 reasons why you got to at least question when you're going to go for sale.
So true. Yeah, just to tie into that a little bit, Brad, I think one of the things too is as your agent, we help take the emotion out of the process. A lot of for sale by owners have been in their house for a while. They feel like they can do it. They feel like they know their house the best, but we help take the emotion out of that conversation or that conflict of interest of, well, I only want to pay X for your home that you feel is Y. So we help manage that process as well, which I think is huge from start to finish. So some very good points there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, awesome. Thank you, Brad.
I'll say from like the lending standpoint, can be difficult working with a for sale by owner person, and I do feel like many times they owe me commission, because they're asking me questions about where to order title insurance or things about contracts, and I always defer to, I'm not a real estate agent, I can't tell you how to do these things, or they ask me to send them an actual contract, I just tell them to Google it. But I do feel like anytime I deal with those, it's more of a headache, and I end up doing a lot more like work that I don't, necessarily think I should be doing on those. I did have a question. I don't know if this is something you want to cover in a completely different topic, because I think you could probably go in depth with this.
Okay.
What's the difference between you and a flat rate person if someone wants to list their house?
Now, I'll speak generally about this. Typically, the difference between us and a flat rate is everything else except that I just mentioned that we do, except for putting on MLS.
Okay.
That's really what a flat rate does. They get you on MLS, which does get you to the syndicated websites. So they do take a portion. I'm going to say a portion because when you sit through a listing consultation with us, we go through way more beyond syndicated websites for marketing. So they take a portion of marketing, and that's it. Because usually a lot of times it's in the instructions, and you'll see it on MLS. If I show a flat rate listing, is contact the seller for showing time schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Send all offers to us, but copy the seller. So they're really just getting paid a flat rate typically. And I'm going to explain why I say typically, because you're really going to do all the work. You're basically a for sale by owner. You're paying a small fee for an MLS. That's basically what it is. Now there are some quote unquote that have flat rate or some flat rates in your title that do go a little bit beyond. But I'll be honest with you, Vince and I were just working on this yesterday. We actually have a menu of options from a commission standpoint. So if you don't want to pay 6% to sell your home, great. We have a lesser option for you. Now our services are going to be less because that's what the flat rates do and other people do. But maybe you don't need the full services. We also have a higher commission beyond 6% for stuff that we need to go way above and beyond. Because basically it boils down to it's not easy and it's time. So numbers 4 and 5 really are the reason for those options. But that's flat rate.
Yeah. So for you guys have like an actual quote unquote like menu or different service levels where if I come to you and I'm like, listen, my house is in great shape. I just need you to, I need your assistance, but I don't know if I need like, staging. I don't know. I don't need my house staged, that kind of like you have maybe the middle of the road option or whatever, however that looks like. So that's good. I'm gonna put my twist on that every time I get an accepted offer and there's like a flat rate person, with the listing. And I'm generalizing here. It's very hard to communicate with them. They don't typically get back to you. It's not the best process for me as the lender communicating with them. So I can definitely tell the difference in the service you're going to get. But I wanted people to know, like, hey, if I list my house myself, people think you're going to save all this money, which I agree, Brad. You're not saving money at the end of the day. Like, you're just not. So maybe they think of like the flat rate dude on the billboard driving down Highway 16, and I don't know that that's the best idea. I think going to someone like you where they can pick their service is probably going to be the best, because at the end of the day, then you can say, hey, you picked whatever you wanted.
Exactly. Right. Time is like the most critical factor. Just think about it, like there's a reason this is our full-time job. This is what we do. And our teams, now some of them may be part-time, but there's multiple members of support a lot of times within your operation, within our operation. All that is time and money, and that's why there's a team getting your house sold in a lot of cases, and I think that's the most critical thing. But to your point, the reason is when you sell them through the flat rates and you end up back getting all the questions, it's because really a lot of the flat rates are just simply to get your stuff on MLS. That's it. It's a little additional marketing. Now, again, don't want to make anybody mad, because I know there are some that go a little bit beyond that. But again, that should be going through your interview process and interviewing that agent or that agency. And, hopefully, you're going to be with us as well. Okay?
Great questions, great conversation today, guys. Thank you for your time. We're Eagle Homes, and we have Adam with A to Z Mortgage Team. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Love to help you out. Thanks again for your time, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.